Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with special guest
Scott Garibay
and
Dave.
So
not so special of a guest. I'm always here.
So we have a special topic to talk about tonight, and this is presented by
Scott Garibay. So what I want to talk about is Disney and tabletop role-playing games. Now, why are we talking about it? And the reason we're talking about it is this book, right? Okay, so this book. Sorry. All right. So this book, I am very blessed to have this book. This is the D20 Star Wars role-playing game book. And this book is really important right now because it is connected to a few different trends that are happening. So this is, you can see it was a weird shape, right? I bought this book probably 8-10 years ago, I think, for about $39.99 brand new. I was also blessed to get another copy through Paperback Swap for $2.50. If you don't know about Paperback Swap, look them up. They're awesome. You can get books for trade there. It's really, really nice. I handed my other copy over to a buddy of mine because I was like, I got this for $2.50. Here you go, buddy, right? This book now costs $205 used. And the reason why is Disney. So Disney is now impacting our hobby, tabletop role-playing games, and it's doing it in the following way. So so I'm a big history buff. Since the 80s, there has never been a time where there hasn't been a Star Wars game, a Star Wars tabletop role-playing game. West End Games had it. A whole bunch of different people had the Star Wars property, and also Marvel. There have been no less than 4 or 5 different Marvel tabletop role-playing games. The last copy of it that was done for Marvel was Margaret Weis Productions had a copy of Marvel game, but there is currently now, for the first time ever, and this is directly because of Disney role-playing games, directly because of Disney and how they're impacting tabletop role-playing games. Marvel is now owned by Disney. It is a multi-billion-dollar property. Marvel, everything they touch turns to gold, and so they're like, hey, we figured this out. Tabletop role-playing games are a license to tell a story in our world. We can never let that happen again. Now, Ted, if you would, could you hold up these two? These are amazing, highly controversial role-playing games. So this is Star Wars Edge of the Empire, and this is Star Wars Age of the Rebellion. And I just ordered on Amazon Star Wars Force and Destiny, right? And it was actually hard to get. 2 weeks after release, I couldn't get it through Amazon, I had to get it through a special provider, right? And I'm still waiting for it to show up at my door, but they said it's on its way, so I'm not worried. But I'm predicting now that these are the last Star Wars role-playing games that will ever, ever, ever be published. And the reason why is it was launched before the deal was cut with Disney to get Star Wars. And again, Disney will never let properties exist that encourage people to write stories in their world, because we have some ownership of those stories, right? So it's really interesting that this is happening, and I'll tell you right now, if you're a tabletop role-playing game fan, go out and get what you can, because these books are going to do nothing but go up. There is a Marvel role-playing game. I'm blessed to own a copy. Mine is not in perfect condition. I actually have I have all the parts, but it's been played, right? That is worth $3,000. It is the Marvel Saga role-playing game. It comes with a card deck, and the card decks were lost, and that's why it's so incredibly rare and so incredibly hard to get. But these books are going to go up, 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 right? So my question to you guys is, did you ever think there was a day where Disney would be bumping up against our tabletop role-playing games? Do you see this as a threat in the future? Do you think there's other properties that they could get that we might have had role-playing games if they hadn't jumped in?
See,
what do you guys think?
Here I was thinking that you were going to be talking about, us playing, Mickey and Goofy as character
Donald Duck
options.
for you, Ted.
So I basically, I've looked at RPGs, and I have no problems being able to take a prepared universe, if you will, and play that with another system.
Take that, Disney.
So as any other option that's out there, like you could literally say, okay, let's take Star Wars, and you could play it in GURPS, you could play it in Fate, you could play it in Mutants and Masterminds, and Marvel is pretty much the same as well. So you don't necessarily need a specific licensed product to play a specific genre.
Well, that is true. Let's face it, Ted. We're gamers and we want it.
It's
we
absolutely
want it bad.
It's absolutely true.
Give it to me.
People want, people want, hey, what's the stats on Boba Fett? What's the stats on Chewbacca?
Exactly.
How do I fight Darth Maul? People want these type of situations. They want these questions answered, but failing the powers that be, or the powers behind the product providing it, people are just going to do it on their own.
I still have a little glimmer of hope, because Mutants and Masterminds did procure, Green Ronin, I should say.
DC rights.
They procured a DC rights, very limited, 4 books, but they did get it, which was awesome. So I guess it could happen, depending if. Really, it just comes down to whether or not these companies feel like there's enough market share for them to grab. And unfortunately, role-playing games just aren't as popular. I mean, even looking at our very successful YouTube channel, it has grown really quickly. But, we're almost at the pinnacle for what this hobby kind of can withstand or whatever. But just because it's just a small niche, compared to other things. Like when I compare it to like video games or something, like our 9,000 subscribers next to a video game channel is like nothing. My son loves to break my balls all the time when I'm like, look, hey, we just hit whatever. I was like, oh really? Let me look at PewDiePie. Oh wait a minute, 3 million views on this video he put up an hour ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's a small niche, and it is hard to get the attention of these bigger companies.
It is. Now, I think it's a great loss. I understand what you're saying, that we're going to be able to keep playing, but it is a significant loss, because one of the things is I really feel that it's hard for people to understand this, but there really is a value. I know for a fact that there are, especially Buffy fans, there are Buffy fans who are not Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was a licensed product, and there were Buffy fans who bought the books who never played them, because they're saying, oh, you have 10 pages of content on Xander, and you can
go read that.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's an awesome point, because for every game system, for every genre, for every specific IP property, there is somebody out there who wants more of it, and they might not be role players. And by having these products out there, we have the chance to garner some more people into the fold, bring them into the hobby, and that is the disadvantage of not having a Marvel game or a Star Wars game, because those people that want more, they're not going to think about grabbing a game they don't understand and making the game that they want. The draw's not there. I mean, one of the first games that really hooked me in the role-playing games was TSR's Marvel Superheroes games.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's still one of the greatest superhero RPGs that was ever made. It was very simplistic, but I loved that game.
Yeah, it was
Matter
really
of fact, when I was introduced to the Palladium Superheroes, I was so appalled by how that system ran that I wanted to go back to Phase Rip.
Now, are you talking about the ones that had the colored chart? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the classic Marvel role playing game.
That was the very first superhero. I think it was the very first superhero RPG.
It was. It absolutely was. And there are, and I would even tell people, start looking for these books, because they're not normal books anymore. One thing that's really kind of nice, tabletop role-playing games overall, the books are going up in value across the board. So like Noble Knights and some of these other games are books. If there was a time where I took 20 Shadowrun books, and I was like, I never used these. They're an older version, and thank goodness I thought about throwing them out. I shipped them to some dude I knew at a very, very low price. Since then, I've kept every role-playing game book I have, and they do nothing but go up in value, and some of them are quite valuable now. So keep your older stuff, which is really nice. But the other things that I think is really a little disappointing is when you do a role-playing game product and you do a book, you bring new art to that property. And so you bring visual artists and you say, okay, I need 20 to 50 pieces of art for this book. And so a great example of that is Knights of the Old Republic. So there are actually dozens of these square old Star Wars D20 books, and Knights of the Old Republic, and dozens of these characters have pieces of art that are really compelling and beautiful, that are really exciting to the fans of the property, and they show up on the internet in different areas where that art is never going to be generated. You're never going to get that additional view of these properties, and also the mechanical aspects of saying, hey, I can see what this edition of the book, and this company thinks Black Panther looks like, what his abilities are, what his, is it a D8 or a D12, and I think that was a lot of fun too.
Now, interesting enough, and this is probably like a deviation from mostly what's been in the before, Green Ronin, when they got the DC license, DC opened their art library to them, and they actually got to select and pick through,
right.
The 75 years or whatever it is of DC comics and use those art assets.
You're absolutely right, and that was one of the Marvel, and one of the things that's really sad too now is we as fans, I don't think had any idea of what was happening, where we did not buy these books in large numbers. West End Games went out of business owning the Star Wars property. That's unthinkable today. And honestly, what's really amazing is Fantasy Flight has made this latest version of the Star Wars game. Go out and get it. It's fantastic. It's very controversial because it uses custom dice, and a lot of people don't like that.
Gasp!
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're against buying more dice? What's wrong with these people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the dice.
Sorry for you guys out there. If you know me, I'm obsessed with dice. I've got
plastic. He has a plastic habit.
But one of the things that's interesting is the ability to say. So Fantasy Flight got the Star Wars property and said, we have these books. We know how precious this is, right? And so what they did was they're like, we're not going to sell regular dice. We're going to sell dice with special symbols on the face, so that people have to pay $15 extra for a set of dice to play this game. I'm all for that. And the reason why is I think that the value on role-playing games is very high. Anybody listening to this channel probably agrees. But there were a lot of people. Actually, there was some specific. The Ennies. There was a controversy about the Ennies that said that those books were actually cut out of the Ennies because they did not want the. There was rumors that they were cut out of the Ennies and not given awards because they were saying we don't want this aspect to grow in the hobby where every game needs a special set of dice because it'll be more expensive, it'll be harder for people to play. And but they were trying, so that's my point, is that's another thing we lose by losing these properties, right? And that is innovation. So they were innovating in the field, right? So you're losing art, you're losing innovation, you're losing people outside of the field buying the books, right? And here's the bigger part, right? So we've already lost Star Wars, we've already lost Marvel. What if they pick up another property and so any new property that they get, we almost guaranteed to never have a license option for that role-playing game. So one of the things, and then another thing I'll throw out there is, at Nerdarchy fans, you guys are out there, you have a hive mind that we can utilize. Is there any way we can sell them on this? Because the reality is there's not a lot of money in
maybe if they came up with if they were to develop a generic system where they could overlay all the different properties on it, but the core mechanics and the core system would work off the same thing, so that then they would be able to sell like these core books to all role players, but then like the role players themselves could pick and choose the niches they want.
So you could have the core RPG, and then be able to have the Star Wars license, the Marvel license, and then anything else that they want to either pick up or add. I think that would be, would definitely move their market into a whole new direction.
Yeah, and hopefully, I hope that if there's any Disney employees out there, the one thing I would say is we can't pretend like these books do not make a lot of money because they're not collectible, and it's actually one of the things that people love about the hobby is it's not like Magic. I don't have to if I put out $80 on Amazon for the books, I'm going to be able to play any campaign I want, right? I don't have to continue to iterate. But the one thing that I think role-playing game books have that you can't get is street cred. So like these are like vinyl, like they have a lot of street cred, and the people who play role-playing games are generally a very good audience to be selling and to be looking at your property, and they have a big voice on the internet. Actually, D&D fans are very oversized as far as the voice they have on the internet, which is really interesting. So I hope Disney really reconsiders this and allows these properties to start to come back. I'd love to see a new Star Wars role-playing. We don't need a new Star Wars role-playing game right now because Fantasy Flight did a fantastic job. But we definitely need Marvel back.
They have the resources to create that generic role-playing system, like Fate has done and other people have done, and then overlay various properties on it. I would love to see that. I would much prefer that over getting a game for each each property.
Right.
I would rather get something that I could keep bash together, that you can mix and match if you wanted to, but the core mechanics are all the same. They have the resources to hire the talent
absolutely.
to make that happen.
Yeah, and also there's still some properties out there, and so this is one that worries me, right? So there's a property out there that I would love to see made into a tabletop role-playing game, and a lot of people would too, and that is the Avatar: Last Airbender series. Very popular. It's never been turned into a role-playing game. There's a ton of source books. There's a ton of core books and source book material. You could easily convert it. I think it would sell. It would definitely sell, right? But if Disney rolls up and takes that property, it's guaranteed never a sell. And so and
how many of their properties do they already own, right? That are actually Disney properties that people would love to play as a video, or not a video, as an RPG.
As an RPG,
like right off the top of my head, I think of Tron.
Right, Tron. You're exactly right. That'd be great.
How many of us would love to play in that world?
And there's quite a few others, that are out there. And actually, I'll even throw this out there. This is the biggest theory, and this is horror movie section of Nerdarchy. I honestly believe it's highly likely that there's a very distinct possibility that Disney could own D&D in the future. And the reason why you're hearing it now, Scott Garabate's predicting it. D&D is one of the most undervalued properties in the world, by far. And the reason why it is Marvel in the 70s. Nobody knew what Marvel was going to be. They didn't know it was billion-dollar properties. D&D is iconically what people think about when they think about fantasy in the modern day. And so D&D is a purely American brand, and Japanese people buy $200 Levi's, and so purely American brands, jazz, baseball, all these things, it's important. And D&D is an incredibly undervalued brand. They're erecting a statue of Gary Gygax. I think D&D is going to go up, 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 up. And if there is ever a successful movie, which we know the odds are against, it could be a billion-dollar property, and you could sweep it up for a song. And I think D&D would.
I think the only way that it would happen would be as if Disney purchased all of Hasbro, and I don't think that's a deal that's going to happen.
Hasbro owns Pokemon, and that's why, again, I think it's actually highly likely. I think Hasbro is undervalued.
I don't think Disney's going to be able to make that big of a purchase. I don't think Hasbro's.
I don't know. They've made some fairly big purchases in the past.
Disney stock is going through the roof, and they just bought Star Wars for $4 billion cash.
But if you look at Hasbro and how many different products that branch off of that, as you said, Pokemon, Transformers, D&D, forget anything else that's there. Those three there, that is massive. I don't think Disney's got the cojones to actually make it happen. Yeah. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, when they've gained all of this stock and made billions of dollars off of everything else, maybe. But in the near future, I don't think it could possibly happen.
And what's interesting is my point about this, and one of the reasons why I bring it up is, big companies and billions of dollars properties are starting to rub up against our little niche market. And one of them is, it's kind of strange, but Battleship. Battleship was just a rinky-dink little board game, and they made a movie out of it. That movie failed, but more and more people are starting to think, and see, the thing that I think really is kicker is names are incredibly valuable today as we go into as technology and things change so fast. Valuable, well-established names that have goodwill, and D&D has a goodwill attached to it. It still has nerd connected to it, but I think nerd has changed. And geek chic has come around. So start thinking about your tabletop, role-playing game hobby and how really it is already being impacted by multi-billion-dollar companies. And what do we want our relationship with these multi-billion-dollar companies to be, and how do we think about that from a hobby perspective? I think it's kind of an interesting concept.
Well, thanks for bringing up the topic. I love it. It's we like, in America, we like to find weird things to talk about that may be a little bit controversial, and we put things out there to get the rubberneck effect on our titles, and it works. But we do it for the love of the hobby, because we want as many people as possible talking about tabletop gaming, talking about wearing that nerd badge or a geek if you prefer. But the point is, it's our little way where we get to expand the hobby and think about these weird things. And you know what? As nerds, as gamers, part of this hobby. We always have had these conversations. It's always been fun to delve into these weird, like, side talks about where the hobby can go, how other things are affecting it.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. Also, I would just call out, I could be wrong about this, but I'm telling you, if you're at, Gen Con, or if you're at a local con and you see some of these older Star Wars books, pick them up, because especially if they're $5 or $2, because I don't think people understand what a trajectory they're going to have as collectibles.
You never know when your Marvel game is going to be worth $3,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, and it is interesting that these old books, these paper books, are now starting to become like vinyl records. Like they have street cred among nerds.
I love that
people,
analogy.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So yeah,
it makes me feel a little more hipper.
Yeah. Exactly.
So hey guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Disney's going to lock down the world or not? Like, share, and subscribe while you're at it.
Or you can join the conversation over on Reddit.
Till next time,
stay nerdy.